Hi, everyone. This very heavy trophy is um, an award from the Public Relations Society of America, the PRSA. It shows a man uh, working with an anvil. He's a smith and he's forging public opinion. And that's what public relations is, that's what communications is. Um, I want to tell you about how I won this award because it was a project I'm very proud of, and there are several names there. It was definitely a team effort. But I think it can help you a little bit with what you're trying to do. So, I was working in Puerto Rico in 2009, and the CEO asked me to translate into Spanish a campaign that was running in the U.S. It was a PSA. It was a campaign developed by an organization called PAX, and their objective was to stop school shootings. And so the CEO said, we need to translate it into Spanish. And I said, okay. And then he left. And my team said, no, we don't need that. There has never been a school shooting in Puerto Rico. I'm not Puerto Rican. I was new to the country. I had no idea. But they were like, no, we've never had that here. There's never been like a Columbine, any of that kind of stuff. So I said, okay, let's treat this like any other business project. Let's do research. So we connected with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Puerto Rico, and we asked them if we could do a survey among the children that attend these clubs. And we did, and we found out that it turned out that most of the children knew somebody that had brought weapons to schools. So the objective of the campaign was to create awareness of an 800 number that children can call anonymously to report a weapons threat. Well, most students knew somebody who had brought a weapon to school in the last 30 days, and about a third of the respondents admitted that they themselves had carried a weapon to school. Now, it wasn't always a fire weapon. Many times it was a knife or a switchblade. So we contacted the police department, and they said, "Oh, there have been weapons incidents in Puerto Rico in schools, but we have never had a mass incident. They tend out to be one person against another person, and many times it's a switchblade and it's not a firearm, but there definitely is weapons violence in Puerto Rican schools. So we saw there was a need for the campaign, but also it wasn't just translating the American campaign. We had to adapt it because the US campaign said, if you know that somebody's going to bring a weapon into your school, call this number, it's anonymous. We had to say, we know that you know there are weapons in your school. If you know that somebody's going to commit an act of violence, call this number. We did, after that quantitative survey, we did focus groups where we presented ideas to the students, and about a third of them said they would be comfortable calling the number as long as it was anonymous. So we went ahead and developed a campaign, multimedia, social media, general media campaign. And then before we aired it, we went back to the Boys and Girls Clubs. I should mention that the actors in the campaign were some of the Boys and Girls Clubs students. So we showed it to them and we said, what do you think? And they liked it. They said it would help them. But they asked us to blur the faces of the students in the commercial except for the face of the shooter, because he would be the only one who wasn't anonymous. All the other students would be anonymous. So that was a great idea. So we did that. And we were also concerned because the number, when you called it, it was a number in New Jersey and it was answered in Spanish, but it wasn't necessarily Puerto Rican Spanish. It could be a Mexican, it could be Salvadorian Spanish. And they said, no, that's actually better because that way I know it's not somebody who's going to recognize my voice. So that gave it credibility. And then after we ran it for about a year, our metric was that it would be successful if there were 10 credible threats that we had managed to stop. And at the end of the year, the police told us there had been over 260 threats. So we believe that we saved lives. And then we did another survey and we asked the students how they felt about it, and then we ran it again. So all this is to say that that was our logic model. So one of the readings this week explains what the logic model is. Who's your audience? What are you trying to get them to do? will you accomplish that? Are you using the right language? Are you assuming things that are not necessarily true? And how will you act after you've launched this? How do you follow up? Right? So those things are important. Now, specifically for social media, I think there are several things that are very important that are also mentioned in the lectures. Use of video and photos is super important, not only because it makes people more apt to click on them and look at them, but also because search engines, particularly Google, they prioritize images and videos. So if you have an image or a video, people are much more likely to find you, and it's much more likely to go to the top of the Twitter feed or whatever it is. The use of humor is important. So I'm helping out the Foundation to Save the Golden Lion Tamarin, and the people running their communications are biologists. They have really important information, but it's all very serious, and it's great for people that are really into the Golden Lion Tamarin and want to find out the specifics of the genetics of the tamarin and how to preserve genetic diversity in the population in the wild. But for the regular person that might have seen a tamarin in a zoo, they might not necessarily read that information, right? So zoos do this really, really well. I think some of you may have seen that video of at the beginning of the pandemic when zoos closed, and in one of the zoos they took the penguins to visit the aquarium. And it was super cute. Now, is that going to make people want to save the penguins or want to prevent climate change? Maybe yes, maybe not. But they're much more likely to start following the zoo. And when they follow the zoo, they are much more likely to get the conservation messages. Also, they're more likely to then click through and end up in the zoo's website, which does have a lot more information about how they can help. Let me look at my notes. Distinct voice. Okay, what is your voice? Your voice does not necessarily have to be the same in every platform, right? But you should have a distinct voice. Are you informative? Are you light? Are you trying to reach elementary school students? Are you trying to reach young adults? You will speak differently, you will act differently. It's really important to follow and repost. So one thing I found out with the Golden Lion Tamarin Foundation is that a lot of zoos that have Golden Lion Tamarins, they frequently post pictures and videos of them. And the foundation was not reposting those. They were not liking them. They were not saying, shout out to the Atlanta Zoo. They're great partners, right? It's important to do this because that helps you enlarge your audience, right? Zoos tend to have large audiences because they have really cute pictures and videos, and so that way another organization can also get some of that audience. And interacting with the audience is good. It's sometimes scary to interact people with that you don't know, but it's good to answer their questions as quickly as possible because people have a very short attention span online. Tweets and Facebook posts have a very short life, and you need to be able to react quickly. And finally, I think that one of your lectures this week has really good parameters for how much time you're supposed to devote to this. You really have to do it on a regular basis. You cannot, post things 2 days in a row and then not for another month because you do lose your audience. There's way too much stuff competing for people's eyeballs. So those are my pointers for this week. Please feel free to email me or either through Dragonfly or through my Miami email, and let me know if I can answer any questions. Thanks, bye.